have I been? Child, it's been a minute, okay? To be honest, it has been months and months and months and months since I've made a video, but thank you so much for joining me today. And as you can see from the title, we're talking about my first home purchase. So I wanted to run through a couple of things of how I came to that point, how I made the decision to be a homeowner and my process, but also some of the things that I've learned since being a homeowner. First, we're going to start off with my why for purchasing a home. I've always wanted to be a homeowner, and I grew up with my parents owning their first house and their second house, which is now their forever home, and also noticing friends as I got into my late 20s, early 30s, seeing them purchase homes. And I always just wanted to own where I live. Granted, I loved apartment living because maintenance, it was on the apartment community, but also maintenance, it was on the apartment community. So if you live in an apartment and you have great maintenance people that actually respond to you in a good, like adequate amount of time, thank God for them, because that was my last apartment community. I absolutely loved that apartment, but I knew it wasn't going to be long term for myself. I did want to have equity. I wanted to build wealth, and I knew owning property is one of the ways to do that. Well, going back 2 to 3 years ago, we're not going to go through the whole shenanigans of it, but I started to work on my finances. It started with just saving a little by little. That led me up to getting a financial coach. So the financing part was one of the ways that helped me prepare for my home purchase. Another part of that is the realtor I wanted to use. And I was referred to someone from my church, told her, hey, I want to purchase a home, but it probably won't be right now. So it was literally 2 years until we spoke again. Well, we've been speaking, but in terms of home purchasing, I said, hey, I'm ready. And she said, okay, let's go. So I wanted a realtor who was going to advocate for me, not only to the sellers, but to myself, who was going to challenge me and saying, hey, Elisa, this is not the house because you said you wanted A, B, and C, and this has Z, F, and G, which is not on your list. A lender. That was the other part of working with someone, both the realtor and lender for myself, who was going to hold my hand. I needed hand holding. Being the biggest financial purchase I've ever made to date, I needed someone who was going to hold my hand and answer questions, and not if I just got off the phone with you and I said, oh goodness, I have 5 more questions to ask, I'm going to email it to them. I don't need you to be annoyed. I needed a lender who was going to hold my hand and walk me through this process and go line by line of what I am signing, what it means, and what does it mean for right now, and what does it mean for 30 years from now also. So my realtor recommended a couple lenders to me. And here's the thing with the lenders, y'all, and even a realtor, you can interview them. Chat GPT helped me out with that, with like questions to ask. Ask the questions. Do you work with a lot of first time home buyers? That is a big question. Since I'm a first time home buyer, usually you do need a lot of hand holding, even if you say you don't, because you don't. They're the subject matter experts. You're not. Interview your lender and your realtor. And if you don't feel it's a great fit, continue to move on. Homes will be there. This is the biggest financial decision you will be making. You need someone who's going to be there for you, who's going to advocate for you, and also work with you after you make the purchase. That's another thing we will get to. The thing that helped me prepare for my home purchase was applying for grants. I was awarded a grant, which I'm so grateful for. And well, let me say, I am immensely grateful for. Because honestly, y'all, if it wasn't for this grant, I don't think I would have been able to purchase a home. But do your research on grants. This is a grant that's not listed as a second silent line of credit. There are some grants out there that could be listed as that, which basically means if you don't follow their rules of making sure your payments aren't on time, you're not leasing out the house, and you don't move or sell it before 5 years. One of the biggest things that helped me, educational tools from YouTube. I will list all the people who have helped me, from underwriters on YouTube, lenders who are licensed in all 50 states, home inspectors. Educate yourself. Once again, yes, I am not the subject matter expert, but I do hold personal responsibility for doing some research. That way, at least I have a foundation of like a question to ask. Also, I did two virtual workshops that were on Saturday. They were both 8 hours. Now, let me rewind that a little bit. I did not have to do both of these. I just did because I was just like, you can get tons of information from tons of people, and you just have to kind of dwindle it down to what your situation is. But they were both first time home buyer workshops. One is through Operation Hope. It's a financial literacy and a home ownership workshop. And whether or not it's your first home or your fifth home, you can do the workshop, which is great. And you can also sign up for their financial literacy classes, which are free. So that's Operation Hope, and I'll have that information in the description box as well. And National Faith Homebuyers, their virtual workshop. In both of these workshops, once you get done with it, you will get a certificate. So if you need the certificate for your lender for the type of loan that you will get, for me, I did do a FHA loan. But in both workshops, it was great information. Underwriters, lenders, other realtors, home inspectors on the workshop. I learned a ton of information from all these people, and they talked about also things that you need to do after. Oh, the closing attorneys. Closing attorneys were on these workshops as well. There's so much information that can get you to the closing table, but there's so much more information that you need after that. So educate yourself on not just getting to the closing table, but what happens after you close. There's still stuff you have to do and still stuff that comes up. So we will talk about that in future videos about the things that came up after I closed. It is nothing crazy, but it's like, yep, you're a home buyer, you're a homeowner now. And something else that helped was that I created a must have and must not list for myself. I knew I needed yard, I knew I needed a multi-level house. I knew I did not want at all an HOA. Not at the least. Not at the least. I did not want an HOA. Also on my do not want list was I didn't want a new build. Now, you got to take what you take if you get an older house, whether it's 100 years old or 30 years old. You just pray that the people who owned it kept up with it, and there are going to be things that you need to do. Okay, if you do want a new build, talk to those builders, work out, make sure that stuff is up to code, get your home inspected. Okay, on to viewing homes. Once I knew I had the grant, my lender said, when are you going out to view homes with your realtor again? I was like, we fast forward to, I think this is end of July, going into beginning of August. I said, in about a week. She said, okay, we're going to get you in a conditional approval. She said, if you find something, I want you to have a strong offer and you will have a conditional approval. I was like, okay. She said, it's better than a pre-approval because conditional, the underwriter has began to look through your stuff and says, okay, we're good to go. Really, the only thing that needs to be done at that point is the appraisal and the title. We got to check all that stuff, but you would be good to go. Within 72 hours of that conversation, I had a conditional approval. That Saturday, we went out shopping for homes, and that was very exciting. We looked at a total of, I think, 8 or 9 homes in one day, but people who have previously owned homes or own a home, if you're like, oh my gosh, it was a lot in one day. Yes, but I was able to knock those suckers out. From when I approached even the neighborhood, I was like, no, this is a no. I don't care. Some of the homes that we looked at were corporation owned, not homeowner owned, or it's a term for it, but they were basically flipped and the corporation was selling the home. Instead of like there was a family or a person living in the home and they were going through a realtor to sell it, it has a term, but some of the homes were corporation owned, and there was only one that was actually kept up that I saw. And kept up meaning like the yard was cut, it was clean on the outside and inside. So when people came to view the home, it looked nice. You can envision your stuff there. All the other ones, I mean, there was one that was spiders everywhere, and then on the inside, you can just tell they came through and like it looked like an apartment being flipped in a week. Like they just slapped stuff on the paint on the wall. You could tell like there was wall damage. here and there and everywhere. And the refrigerator wasn't cleaned out. I was like, what the heck? And this is in a good neighborhood. That's the thing. The neighborhood looked really good and the homes looked really good. So we came to a house, right? And I was like, oh, I like this neighborhood as we're driving through it. And my realtor and I, we drove our separate cars. And I said to myself, okay, neighborhood looks really good. It looks like a standard subdivision. I can tell there's like kids and big families that live in this neighborhood, very well kept. Came in the house, and I knew from the moment I set my foot on the property that it was something special about this house. Something very special.